Hi guys, let us continue with our topic respiratory tract infections. Today I bring you to the topic sinusitis, which is one among the upper respiratory tract infections. First of all, let us move on the definition. Sinusitis is an inflammation and or infection of the paranasal sinus mucosa. So sinusitis is nothing but the inflammation or the infection of the mucosal membrane of the paranasal cavities. So paranasal cavities are also known as sinuses. So there are mainly four pairs of sinuses. They are namely as maxillary sinus, frontal sinus, ethmoid sinus and sphenoid sinus. And they are named for the bones that they are located in. So depending upon their position or location, they are named as maxillary, frontal, ethmoid and sphenoid sinuses. So let us see where they are located actually. The maxillary sinus, they are located on each side of your nose near the cheekbone. So you can see it is located in near the cheekbone. So it is present on both sides of the nose. Then coming to the frontal sinus. So frontal sinuses are located above the eyes near your forehead. So above the forehead you can see the frontal sinuses are located. Now coming to the sphenoid and ethmoid sinuses, which are located just behind the eyes and maxillary sinuses. So you can see it is just behind the eyes and maxillary sinuses. So our sinusitis is also known as rhinosinusitis. So this term rhinosinusitis is used by some specialists because sinusitis typically also involves the nasal mucosa. So mainly it involves the inflammation of the mucosal membrane. It can be either, it can also be the nasal mucosa. Now moving to the etiology. Viruses are responsible for most cases of the acute sinusitis. However, when symptoms are persistent, that is, it lasts for more than or equal to 7 days or severe, bacteria may be a primary cause or the cause of secondary infection. Acute sinusitis, that is bacterial in origin, is caused most often by the same bacteria implicated in acute otitis media. So this is they are Streptococcus pneumoniae and Haemophilus influenzae. So these organisms are responsible for about 70% of the bacterial cause of acute sinusitis in both adults as well as children. Whereas Moraxella catarrhalis is also frequently implicated in children, which causes 25% of the cases in children. Streptococcus pyogenes, Staphylococcus aureus, fungi and anaerobes have been associated less frequently with acute sinusitis. Whereas chronic sinusitis can be polymicrobial with an increased prevalence of anaerobes as well as less common pathogens including gram-negative bacilli and fungi. Now let us see the pathophysiology of sinusitis. In this figure you can see an anterior picture of the sinuses. So here you can see the frontal sinus, maxillary sinus and the nasal passage. Okay, so once the air enters our nasal system, our nostrils, it passes through the nasal cavity into the paranasal cavities. Okay, so the entry of the air from the nasal cavity into the paranasal cavities or sinuses are mainly through the opening in bone, which is known as ostia. So the opening in the bone is called as ostia. So if an ostium is blocked, air cannot pass into the sinus and likewise mucus cannot drain out. So our sinuses are having mucus secreting cells. The sinuses are lined with the mucus secreting cells. So they secrete the mucus into the nose. When the ostium is blocked, this mucus cannot drain out of the sinuses. So similar to the AOM, that is acute otitis media, sinusitis can be followed as a result of respiratory tract infections, a viral respiratory tract infection. So sinusitis can be acute sinusitis or chronic sinusitis. So an acute sinusitis usually is preceded by a viral respiratory tract infection that causes mucal inflammation. This can lead to obstruction of the sinus ostia. So that one is the pathway for drain the sinuses. Mucosal secretions become trapped and local defenses are impaired, and bacteria from adjacent surfaces begin to proliferate there. So this happens in case of acute sinusitis. In simple ways, as a result of the viral infection leads to the inflammation of the mucosal membrane, leads to obstruction of the sinus ostia. Thus, mucosal secretions trapped, local defense are impaired, bacteria proliferation takes place. Okay. Now coming to the pathogenesis of chronic sinusitis. Actually, the pathogenesis of chronic sinusitis has not been well studied. Whether it is caused by more persistent pathogens or there is subtle defect in the host immune function, it is not yet found. Some patients develop chronic symptoms after their acute infection. Coming to the clinical presentation, generally viral sinusitis and bacterial sinusitis are difficult to differentiate because their clinical presentations are similar. Viral infections, however, tend to resolve by 7 to 10 days. Persistence of symptoms beyond this time likely indicates a bacterial infection. So an infection which tend to resolve by 7 to 10 days are caused by virus, whereas the infection which beyond this time period indicates bacterial infection. So bacterial sinusitis can be categorized into acute and chronic disease. Acute disease lasts less than 30 days with complete resolution of the symptoms, whereas chronic sinusitis is defined as episodes of inflammation lasting more than 3 months with persistence of respiratory symptoms. So, acute infection lasts for less than 30 days, whereas chronic infection lasts for more than 3 months. Then, let us see the 3 clinical presentations that are most consistent with acute bacterial versus viral rhinosinusitis. So, onset with persistent signs or symptoms compatible with acute rhinosinusitis lasting for more than or equal to 10 days without any evidence of clinical improvement. Then onset of severe signs or symptoms of high fever, that is more than 39 degrees Celsius, and purulent nasal discharge or facial pain lasting for at least 3 to 4 consecutive days at the beginning of illness. Then onset of worsening signs or symptoms characterized by new onset fever, headache, or increase in nasal discharge following a typical viral URI upper respiratory infection that lasted 5 to 6 days and were initially improving. That is double sickening, the worsening of the condition. Now coming to the signs and symptoms. So generally the signs and symptoms can be purulent anterior nasal discharge, purulent or discolate posterior nasal discharge, nasal congestion or obstruction, facial congestion or fullness, facial pain or pressure, fever, headache, ear pain or pressure or fullness, halitosis, dental pain, cough and fatigue. Halitosis means bad breath. Let us see the treatment, how we can manage sinusitis. Coming to the goals of treatment. So what should be our aim? We should aim at reducing signs and symptoms, achieving and maintaining patency of the ostia, limiting antimicrobial treatment to those who may benefit, eradicating bacterial infection with appropriate antimicrobial therapy, minimizing the duration of illness, preventing complications, and preventing progression from acute disease to chronic disease. So, which is the most important one? So let us see the antibiotics and doses for acute bacterial rhinosinusitis. So before that, generally we can use nasal decongestant sprays such as phenylephrine or oxymetazoline. So they are often used in non-bacterial rhinosinusitis. So they act by reducing the inflammation by vasoconstriction. So this use should be limited to the recommended duration of the product. So no more than 3 days to prevent the rebound condition. Other methods are irrigation of the nasal cavity with saline and steam inhalation. So this may be used to increase the mucosal moisture, and mucolytics such as guaifenesin may be used to decrease the viscosity of the nasal secretions. And the most important precaution is that antihistamines and oral decongestants should not be used for acute bacterial sinusitis because they are having anticholinergic effects that can dry mucosa and disturb the clearance of mucosal secretion. So when mucosa is not there, our mucociliary system cannot be mucociliary escalator mechanism cannot be work properly. So they should not be used in acute bacterial sinusitis. Let us see the antibiotics and their doses for acute bacterial rhinosinusitis. So in case of children, we can start the empirical therapy with amoxicillin clavulanate with a dose of 45 mg per kg per day orally twice daily as a first line management. For second line management, we can use the amoxicillin clavulanate with a dose of 90 mg per kg per day twice daily per oral route. In case of beta lactam allergy, we can use clindamycin plus cefixime or cefpodoxime, and it is for non-type 1 allergy. And in case of type 1 allergy, we can use levofloxacin with a dose of 10 to 20 mg per kg per day per oral every 12 to 24 hours. In case of risk for antibiotic resistance, or when we are observing our initial therapy is failed, in such cases we can use amoxicillin clavulanate 90 mg per kg per day per oral twice daily, or clindamycin plus cefixime or cefpodoxime in a dose of clindamycin 30 to 40 mg per kg per day per oral 3 times daily, plus cefixime in a dose of 8 mg per kg per day twice daily, or cefpodoxime 10 mg per kg per day per orally twice daily. Whereas levofloxacin can be given in a dose of 10 to 20 mg per kg per day per oral every 12 to 24 hours. When there is need for hospitalization for severe infections, we can manage the patient with ampicillin sulbactam in a dose of 200 to 400 mg per kg per day through intravenous route given for every 6 hours. Ceftriaxone is provided through IV route every 12 hours in a dose of 50 mg per kg per day. Cefotaxime can be given in a dose of 100 to 200 mg per kg per day intravenously every 6 hours. And levofloxacin can be provided through intravenous route for 12 to 24 hours in a dose of 10 to 20 mg per kg per day. So this was the management for children. And for adults, we can start the empirical therapy with amoxicillin clavulanate and doxycycline. So the amoxicillin clavulanate treatment is the first line, whereas for the second line treatment we can give the amoxicillin clavulanate in a dose of 2000 mg per 125 mg per oral twice daily. And for the second line management, we can also provide doxycycline for adults in a dose of 100 mg per oral twice daily or 200 mg per oral once daily. In case of beta-lactam allergy, we can provide doxycycline, levofloxacin, and moxifloxacin in a dose of 100 mg per oral twice daily or 200 mg per oral once daily, 500 mg per oral once daily, and 400 mg per oral once daily respectively. So when there is failure of the initial therapy or the risk for antibiotic resistance, we can treat the patient with amoxicillin clavulanate in a dose of 2000 mg or 125 mg per oral twice daily. Then we can also treat with levofloxacin and moxifloxacin with a dose of 500 mg and 400 mg per oral once daily. Severe infection which requires hospitalization can be managed with the help of ampicillin sulbactam, which can be given through the intravenous route in a dose of 1.5 to 3 gram every 6 hours. Whereas for levofloxacin and moxifloxacin, we can provide the drug in a dose of 500 mg and 400 mg respectively through oral route once daily. And for ceftriaxone, the drug should be given in a dose of 1 to 2 gram intravenously every 12 to 24 hours. And cefotaxime should be given in a dose of 2 gram intravenously every 4 to 6 hours. Now coming to the another upper respiratory tract infection, that is epiglottitis. So this is a severe and potentially life-threatening infection of the epiglottitis. So here you can see the inflamed epiglottitis here. So this is most common in the young children and it is caused by the HIB Hib infection, Haemophilus influenza type B infection. Now coming to laryngitis. So laryngitis is an inflammation of the larynx, which is one of the most common laryngeal conditions identified. So this can be acute infection and chronic infection. Whereas the rhinitis, which is most commonly occurs as allergic rhinitis, and it is an inflammation of the nasal membranes that is characterized by sneezing, nasal congestion, nasal itching, and rhinorrhea in any combination. So rhinitis is the inflammation of the nasal membranes. So usually patients may have symptoms such as sneezing, nasal congestion, nasal itching, and rhinorrhea. So with the laryngitis, we can see there is hoarseness of the sound. So larynx is our voice box when there is inflammation which results in the hoarseness of the sound. Thank you.